Joining me now is former Trump Organization executive Barbara Rez and Maya Wiley back with us. Hello to both of you. Barbara, what do you think about the grand jury heating up here and those people going in?
Well, I think it's very good to have Jeff back. Apparently, Jeff is immune, so he's talking, and the fact that they bring him back is encouraging. That they think he's got something to offer. And the Cal Mary's kid, yeah, he's going to be useful. He can talk about his own perks and perhaps his father's perks, and maybe has some information about Donald too. So I'm encouraged by it.
Interesting. These are individuals who are around the same orbit and some of the same allegations or questions about the misuse of company resources, which, according to prosecutors, defrauds the public and has created what they call a criminal enterprise. A Trump org can fight that in court, and we'll see where that goes. It is a big deal, Maya, that everyone expects the law to be equal and justly carried out regardless, but this is a big change after over a decade of Cy Vance. Here's how he, the current DA, talked about these kind of cases, his general approach. Take a look.
I, as DA, have to be guided by the evidence and the elements of the crime and my experts in the office. And if I stop being guided by any of those things and start being guided by outside influences, whether it's money or whether it's public opinion, then I'm not doing my job.
He says he follows the evidence and the facts. Mr. Bragg, who's now the nominee and really being treated in New York as the likely DA, told us he follows the evidence and the facts. So everybody's saying the same things, Maya, but do you think that there is any potential shift or difference when the new DA comes in, which is really just in a couple months?
You know, what I expect from Alvin Bragg is a very aggressive prosecution of this case and nothing less. Remember, Alvin is someone who is an assistant United States attorney, as well as someone who served in the Attorney General's office for the state of New York. This is something that he was born to. He's a committed New Yorker. I think we were all deeply disturbed when we heard the news that the Cy Vance's office had let the Trump children go, Ivanka, go when they had the potential deal that was fraudulent with one of their buildings and how they were advertising it. And turned out that ended up benefiting Cy Vance's donations for his re-election. I'm not suggesting he did anything unlawful. I'm saying it did not look good to the public. I think Alvin Bragg is very aware of that, not as a New Yorker, but as an attorney and as someone who's been committed to the rule of law. And I think we're lucky to have him. And I think he's going to be a very aggressive prosecutor of this case.
And it's interesting really getting your perspective on that, because that's going to matter, especially if there are tough calls to make, especially if they get more out of this grand jury proceeding, as I mentioned, testimony today and forthcoming, and they have to decide they want to take on some big challenges. Barbara, as for the actual issues here, I want to read a little bit from the Wall Street Journal coverage. They talk about, again, these other officials, not as well known, but senior and long serving. It says the elder Mr. Calamari has for years lived in an apartment at Trump Park Avenue and has driven this Mercedes that's leased to the Trump Organization. And then his son lives in Trump Park East, and they can live where they want. The prosecutors are looking at whether this was an effort to cheat on taxes and defraud. Barbara, how common, or did you hear about these kind of arrangements when you were there, or is this something that, to your knowledge, developed later or was super secret?
You know, as far as apartments are concerned and big things like that, I hadn't heard about anything like that. Cars, yes, I had a car myself, actually. But I don't think that he was giving out apartments that workers could not afford at that period in time. But I see the evolution of it. And I'm sure that Matt has an apartment that Trump gave him some way or some other. And his son, my God, I mean, Trump Park East, see, he's just out of school. I don't even know if he finished college. Something is wrong there.
And Maya, I wanted to get your view on the counter argument. As we say around here, you really have to look at both sides of the case, and then people can make up their own mind. But one of the stronger types of arguments legally that was offered by Trump's lawyers, and they spoke sort of in front of that courthouse the day of the first indictment, they said, look, The DA went all the way to the Supreme Court to get Donald Trump's own tax returns. They've been under a microscope for years. The DA's time is running out, which is partly true, in terms of him personally at that office. And they said the best that the DA came up with is stuff that is not typically handled criminally, and there's certainly a precedent for civil cases on these tax matters, that they're not always indictments. And so they said this is the best they got, and we've been under a microscope, and they didn't get that much. What is your view or even potentially analysis or a rebuttal to that argument?
Well, then I would ask, why did Trump's lawyers work so hard to keep his tax returns from the district attorney? And why did Michael Cohen, who was a personal attorney to Donald Trump, actually testify before Congress, actually say that he was guilty? And remember, he didn't get a plea deal, and then testified before Congress, getting no personal benefit, or like obviously hoping he might get some, but said, look, tax fraud and insurance fraud were common, and even implicating at one point Mr. Calamari's father, the COO of Trump Board. So all I would say is it is certainly true that we don't know all the facts. We haven't seen all the evidence that we know the district attorney has. And by the way, no self-respecting prosecutor is going to tip their hand publicly, let alone to the defense attorneys, unless they have to. So we simply don't know. But I would just say that the behavior of Donald Trump himself has demonstrated that he's got plenty to fear.
Can I say one thing also?
Strong. Please.
This practice of paying people as consultants that work, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day in the office is nothing new. That was around a long time ago, and everybody knew about it.
Yeah, and so you're mentioning more than one thing there in the double dipping. I mean, they paid family members who were employees, executives as consultants. The New York Times report on that put a lot of heat on, I think it was Ivanka Trump, and the idea that might be illegal. That is one thing that, as of yet, has not surfaced as a charge or a claim in the DA case. Go ahead, Barbara.
I'm sorry. There are other employees that they did that with also, and I do think that might be part of it. This failure to pay any tax for these people, Social Security tax, that kind of thing, because they are truly employees, but they are working as consultants.
Right. All very interesting, and an update on a case that some may not have thought about recently, with a lot going on in the news, but the grand jury is at work today, so it's a big deal. Barbara and Maya, thanks to both of you.